Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the special meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission. I'd like to begin by inviting everyone to rise as I lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order. Obviously, there's a lot of folks in the room, and I can assume that most of you are here for item 4, the admin report on the field use permit fees. If you would like to speak on this topic, I welcome you to see Ms. Vargas over here and fill out one of these yellow speaker cards. Those are important so that we can properly attribute your comments to the meeting minutes, be a part of the formal record. So I appreciate if you could do that. When we get to that point, I'll call up groups of folks and you can line up and then call up some more groups so that we don't have, all of you standing up at one time. If you wish to, Ms. Vargas, could we make sure that the doors are open? I know the last couple of meetings there's been an issue after 6 that the door's been locked outside. I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to come in, so.
Yes, Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much. Communications from the public. So this is the portion of the agenda that's not related to item 4. If you want to speak to the Parks and Recs Commission on anything else other than item 4. This portion of the agenda is intended for general public comment only for items within the Commission's jurisdiction that are not listed on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the Parks and Recreation Commission are requested to identify themselves and state the matter on which they wish to comment. No action will be taken on matters not listed on the agenda. Please observe a 3-minute time limit for communications. And I see that I just want to make sure, Ms. Valerio, want to speak on the Corona Airport? You want to speak, not on item 4 of the field fees, you want to speak on the airport, right? Okay, come on down. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Lorianne Valerio. I've been a pilot for 22 years and flew out of Corona, learned how to fly in Corona. I'm a member of the Corona Pilots Association, which was established as a 501c nonprofit organization in 1986 to promote aviation, safety, and education amongst the pilots in our community. And I wanted to just make my presence known and my identity known, and I think that maybe I would like to meet whoever the new airport manager is and form a better bond and communication, be a liaison with them, because there are some certain safety issues that I've been reporting. For instance, there was a VASTI light that's been out, and there's a lot of student training there, and it's real important. And today, when I was flying, I noticed the trees are getting real high over the runway, and they need to be trimmed. So if I can keep the City Council informed of our needs in this community, that would be very much appreciated.
Thank you much, Ms. Valerio, and I invite you to those 4 folks in that front row there. It'd be great for you to meet. So please take the time to do so. They're the folks who run the facilities. Are there any other speaker cards for general public comment not related to item 4? Ms. Vargas, do we have any written comments?
No, Chair, no written comments.
Thank you very much. So at this time, we will move on to our single agenda item for the evening, administrative reports. Item 4.1, Parks and Recreation Master Plan Recovery Goals, with a report by Ms. Finch. But before I ask Ms. Finch to launch into that presentation, we do have a commissioner missing tonight, and that is Vice Chair Bass. And Vice Chair Bass has written a statement that I would like to read now. To the community members, staff, and commission, as a Parks and Recreation Commissioner, I am recusing myself from discussions and voting on the Parks and Rec Master Plan recovery goals due to a potential conflict of interest. In order to ensure transparency, I believe stepping aside is in the best interest of the community. I appreciate the effort and cooperation of all parties involved in giving this matter the attention it deserves. Thank you for your understanding. Obviously, we're disappointed. She's got a lot of great points on most of these subjects, but totally understand that decision. So with that, I will invite Ms. Finch to give the presentation.
Thank you, Chair Olson. Good evening, Commissioners. I am Donna Finch, the Director of the Community Services Department. And as you mentioned, we are here tonight specifically to discuss the fees for the cost recovery goals that are tied to our Park and Rec Master Plan and how they relate to the fees for the athletic field reservations. In my presentation, just to give a quick overview, I'm going to be discussing the Park and Rec Master Plan specifically and the financial sustainability strategy that was included in the master plan that we used to develop the recommendations for the athletic field rates. I'm also going to discuss the current cost recovery rates that we are receiving right now based on our existing fees and provide a background of the master fee schedule update that was adopted in May of this year and how the current rates for athletic fields were arrived upon. And then we're going to provide some options for the commission to consider, which will then be forwarded to the city council. The council is going to be meeting and discussing this item tomorrow, the same exact agenda item. So your recommendations will be forwarded over to them for their consideration. So our ask of the commission tonight is that you provide feedback and recommendations to the city council on the athletic field reservation rates. So to start, I just wanted to provide a little bit of background about the Park and Recreation Master Plan. As you're aware, Commission, the plan was adopted back in February 7th, to be exact, of 2024, so at the beginning of this year. And it was developed through an 18-month process that was included robust community outreach. We surveyed over 2,300 residents and held workshops with the commission, with staff, with stakeholders, with residents, to create this unified vision for the long-term future and sustainability of our park and recreation system. The framework is used to develop goals and initiatives that will help us enhance our park system, make sure that our recreation programs are serving the community to the best of their ability, and making sure that our park and recreation system is financially and physically sustainable for the long term. So a key component of the Park and Recreation Master Plan is the financial sustainability strategy. And this was developed, again, to ensure that our park and recreation system is long-lasting. This strategy was developed specifically with a sub-consultant that we brought on board just to help us develop this strategy. The consulting firm is 110%, and they work specifically with cities to refine park and recreation costs of service. And in developing this financial sustainability strategy, it was what was called the three-legged stool process. They looked at identifying the full cost to provide a service, including the materials, maintenance, utilities, and staff time. Then determining the appropriate balance between subsidies. So how much should a city subsidize a specific service, or how much should we implement in fees and charges to help offset the cost of that service? And then lastly, it was looking at developing specific funding strategies that were determined based off of the beneficiary of service model. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation, but it kind of identifies whether the service is benefiting the common good or more of an individualized good. In developing this part of the strategy for the Park and Recreation Master Plan, there were multiple workshops that were held with staff in the commission. 3 workshops specifically were held on this issue between the months of May and October of 2022. And in those workshops, again, the commission, identified the different service categories. So we looked specifically at the programs that we offer and how those programs can be categorized into specific buckets of services. We determined the beneficiary of service for each of these service categories, and then analyzed the cost of service for each categories, and then set goals for the future. So digging a little bit more into the financial sustainability strategy, as I mentioned, the first step was developing the service categories and grouping the programs and services that serve a similar purpose into like service categories. So through that process, there were 8 service categories that were created, ranging from open access services all the way down to reservations. And the way that we looked at it is, instead of looking at programs like youth sports, T-ball, or seniors learn to swim, or an intro to a ballet class. Instead of looking at those as 3 different programs, it made more sense to group them into a group of programs that were focused more on the skills that were being developed. So those specific programs that I use as an example would be grouped into the skill-based activities service category. Open access are mainly programs that anyone can use the service at any time. So these do not require any type of instruction. They're really meant for people to go in and do more self-directed activities. These would be more along the lines of splash pads, parks, trails, basketball courts. And then on the other end of the continuum where we have reservations, these are more of space and facilities that are reserved for exclusive use by an individual or group. Such as a banquet room at the CCC or a private group renting a sports field for a corporate event. I do want to clarify that sports field reservations, if you look in the Park and Rec Master Plan, sports field reservations are listed under the reservations category, but for the sake of doing our cost recovery model, we looked at the specific programs that are being offered through those reservations, mainly with the youth sports groups, and we decided that it was best to group those within the skill-based activities where we classify our own youth sports programs that are offered by the city. So I know there had been a comment, I think at a previous meeting, that field reservations were grouped into the reservation category, which had the highest level of cost recovery. But for the program purpose, we looked at it from a skill-based program perspective. Actually, let me go back. Okay, I want to touch a little bit more on the beneficiary of service model. So this was the next step in the financial sustainability strategy development, and it mainly looks at it determines who benefits from the service and then ranking those categories on a scale from common good services up to individualized benefit services. So common good services are considered more of services that are accessible to all without requiring any type of registration or reservation to participate. So I gave the example earlier of like a park or a trail or a splash pad. Excuse me, anybody can show up at any time to use that service. It's self-directed. There's no restrictions or barriers. You can just show up and use it. And then moving on all the way to the other side of the spectrum, which is the individual benefit services. These are services that are exclusive, specialized benefit to individuals and can include constraints or barriers to access. So when we grouped our 8 service categories, this was done again during those workshops with 110%. And the commission, of course, looked at all of our different programs and services that we offered and grouped them into the 8 categories. You can see here how each of those categories were ranked along the continuum, ranging from common good over to individualized benefit. So I mentioned that the open access services, those are the ones that fell mostly along the line of the common good. And then as we start to move up further towards the continuum, you'll see that the skill-based activity programs fall kind of along the top 1/3, which are more of an individualized benefit, but not a complete individualized benefit. And then at the very top of that spectrum, we have reservations, which that has the highest level of cost recovery recommended with that, which is 120% cost recovery, because that one is determined to have a sole individualized benefit, where it's an exclusive use and access for the individual or group that is utilizing that service. So for skill-based activities, when we analyze the full cost for all programs, skill-based activities as a combined group, which includes youth sports, STEM classes, fitness activities, and contract classes, those were found to be recovering costs at little over 48%. However, the target that was recommended based off of the work that we did with 110% and the best practices that they have seen through other agencies is that those types of activities should be recovering costs closer to the 70 to 90% range. Again, this skill-based activities is a bucket of programs. The youth sports is one program within that bucket, but there are several additional programs that are in there that are recovering at a much higher rate. So we have like our internal youth sports camps that are offered through the city. We have certain contract classes that are recovering at a higher rate. Some of those are recovering at over 100% cost recovery. But when we pull out just the athletic field reservation piece from that bucket, we found that the cost recovery was much lower. The cost recovery specifically for athletic field reservations was at 14%. And that was based off the fiscal year 24 expenditures of $1.7 million and revenue that was received from the reservations of $242,000. So the next part of my discussion is going to be, or my presentation is going to be discussing how these cost recovery targets from the Park and Rec Master Plan tie into the athletic field rates. Before I move on, I wanted to just pause and see if the commission has any questions or if you'd like me to just keep going.
My colleagues have any questions at this point? Keep rolling.
All right. Okay, so moving on to the athletic field rates. So the Corona's field reservation rates have not been analyzed in a cost recovery study since 2018, so it's been about 6 years. As you know, there's been a lot of changes that have occurred. We've seen significant inflation. We've seen wage increases. We've seen increases in utility costs. So there has been a lot of changes and significant increase in expenditures since that time. So when the recent 2024 master fee recovery schedule was implemented, it was at the beginning of this year, right around the time that we were adopting the Park and Rec master plan. This was led by our finance department, and the community services department participated in this study because we had not received an analysis in the 6-year period, and we had the cost recovery goals now to help guide these recommendations. So based off of the cost recovery goals in the Park and Rec master plan, the following adjustments were made or were recommended to be made to the fee schedule. For Group 2, which is our resident recreation nonprofit groups, this is where most of our city leagues lie. The rate was recommended to increase from $10 an hour to $20 an hour. For Group 3, which is the resident competitive nonprofit, these are more of the club teams, the travel ball teams. That rate was recommended increase from $19 an hour to $25 an hour. Group 4 is our resident private or individual groups or for-profit groups that are Corona residents. That adjustment was $31 an hour to $40 an hour. And then Group 5 is our non-resident group, and that was an adjustment of $41 to $50 an hour. After these adjustments were approved, we found that there were several leagues that were paying an outdated Group 2Y rate that was $4 an hour, and it was previously only offered to specific leagues that were members of the Youth Sports Advisory Council, or the YSAC group. The YSAC was eliminated in 2019, but the billing rate change to eliminate that rate did not occur with that. Again, that was not something that everyone in our department was aware of when these recommendations were made. So that resulted in that rate of increase going from everyone being in the 2 group now from 10 to 20, it actually for several groups was a $4 to $20 increase, which was much steeper than we had originally anticipated. So in addition to the cost recovery targets, I do want to note that we did some market analysis as well of what other cities are charging for their field rates. The information that we found initially was based off of what cities have published in their master fee recovery schedules. Again, this didn't really drive our recommendations. Our recommendations were made based off of the cost recovery targets, but we wanted to do a quick kind of spot check of other cities to confirm that the rates that we were recommending were within the rates of other cities. Through the review of the published master fee recovery schedules, we found that our recommendation was a little bit on the higher end. We compared ourselves to Rancho Cucamonga, which charged $21 an hour for the Group 2, Marietta, which was $26 an hour, and Ontario at $15 an hour. We found that the $20 an hour rate was comparable. However, after this information was shared at a public meeting, it was our last commission meeting, I believe a month prior, we did hear from several leagues that they are paying a much lower rate at several of these cities. So we wanted to take a closer look at that and do some additional analysis to see if in fact that was the case. Again, this is not published information for a lot of these cities, so we had to call and contact these cities directly, and we did find that several cities do charge a lower rate, ranging from $0 all the way up to about $6 an hour. However, this rate is only available to very specific leagues. A lot of them are identified as recognized leagues, or they're leagues that have community services agreements or license agreements, but these are not rates that are available to all leagues, even if the league offers an identical like service. So an example would be a larger league that does soccer play, such as AYSO. If there was another smaller league newer to the organization that did the same type of play, that rate would not be available to them. So again, this was not information that was available to us at the time when the rate was being recommended. So going back to the cost recovery targets, again, I just wanted to note that when you look specifically at field rates, the cost recovery for field rates was 14% based off of the rate that we are currently charging. If the rate were to be implemented as recommended, which brings the Group 2 rate up to the $20 an hour target, that cost recovery would move to 56%. So going back to the financial sustainability strategy and the diagram that we have here, you could see that the target is 70 to 90% for those specific types of programs. So there still is a discrepancy, even with the rate as recommended, to reach that 70 to 90% target. So I do want to make sure that we noted that and that the commission was aware of that. One final thing that I wanted to touch on is when the rates were implemented, we did some very high-level analysis to try and estimate what the cost impact could be per participant with the 2024 rate increase. Again, these are very rough estimates that are based on several assumptions, including the number of hours that are reserved by each league, the number of participants for each league, and the number of kids per team. So based on our high-level analysis for the soccer and football leagues, we saw that they have a much lower ratio of kids to hours reserved. So that impact is spread a lot wider. We're not seeing as significant of a potential cost increase based off of this analysis. A lot of that is due to kind of the nature of play of these sports. We have noted through our staff research that soccer, football, they're able to share the fields a lot during practices. They can be a little bit more efficient with their use. So that allows them to have more players on the field, but not have as many hours reserved because they can maximize the field space. For baseball and softball, it's a little bit different just because, again, of the type of play. Typically, when baseball is practicing, they need the entire field to themselves. They're simulating, games and those types of activities. So the nature of play does require more individualized use of those fields. However, we have seen, and I want to note this as well, that there has been overbooking of fields as well by certain leagues. We've had some leagues that do kind of blanket reservations of fields, and we get reports of these fields being unused. So that also can contribute to the higher amount of hours and also the higher impact of rate that could be charged back to those leagues. So with all of that information, we wanted to present these options tonight for the commission to consider. Again, we have heard the community. We know that this increase is significant, again, more significant than we had anticipated based off of our original understanding of what majority of the leagues were paying at the time. So for the commission's consideration tonight, we have 4 options. The first option would be to just implement the rate as adopted, where, again, we have majority of our leagues that are in that Group 2, Priority Group 2, which we found many of them are paying the $4 an hour rate. That would increase them up to $20 an hour. Option 2 would be to phase in this increase over 2 years. Our city does do a rate study, a master fee rate study every 2 to 3 years. So during that period, we are going to be within the next 2 to 3 years doing another rate analysis to see what that cost recovery is. So any of these options, even beyond the 2 to 3 year, even the 4-year rate phase in, we would be doing another cost recovery analysis with the next rate study, again, which would probably occur around 2026, 2027. But going back to the options here, the phase in over 2 years would be a $12 increase this year, moving up to a $20 increase in 2025. And then option 3 would be a phase in over 3 years. So go to a $9, then 14, then 20. Option 4 is a 4-year phase in, so 8 going from 4 to 8 to 12 to 16 to 20. And then we wanted to put other out there because there's a lot of different ways that the commission could recommend to go with this. So we wanted to make sure that you are aware these are not the only options that are available. So again, our ask of the commission is that you provide feedback and recommendations to the city council on the athletic field reservation rates. I'm here, our staff is here. We are available to answer any questions.
Thank you for the report, Ms. Finch. At this time, I'm going to open it to community feedback. We do have a number of speaker cards, and I assume we might have some more hanging out over there. And if you just got here and haven't filled one out yet and you would like to speak, or if you decide you would like to speak somewhere along the way while we're in the public comment section, please feel free to fill out a yellow speaker card, and it'll be brought up to me. What I'm going to ask, since we do have a number of folks here to speak tonight, is that we observe a 3-minute time limit when you come up here and start speaking. If it's not going, when you start speaking, don't worry about it. The timer will start. You'll see the timer count down on the screen. When it gets to 0, you'll hear a chime. It's time to wrap it up, please, and everyone would appreciate that so that we can make sure that everyone is heard equally. I'm going to start by calling up 5 folks, and you can just line up, and then I'll call up another group after that. So, James Rush, Darren Chin, Brian Hochenadal, sorry, Patricia Mulari Baldwin, and Alyssa Gojmerek. If you guys want to start and kick us off, I'd appreciate it. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I first want to start by thanking you guys for your time. I know I've been a commissioner in the city of Riverside for a while, so I know you guys are volunteers and giving a lot of yourselves, so I appreciate you being here today. I'm with AYSO Region 37. I've been a coach there for approximately 7 to 8 years, ever since my kids were 4 and 5. We've had a partnership with the city of Corona for over 50 years, service over 1,900 athletes each season. Seeing these rate increases that are being proposed and doubling are going to have a huge impact on the kids that we coach. Not only do we teach these kids a skill as it relates to sports and teamwork, but there's also a big social aspect for these kids. We get kids that are shy. We get kids that are lacking confidence. And our job as coaches and as the parents that help out on these teams is to help lift those kids up, make them better than what they came to us as moving forward. The impacts these fees will have on some of these families are not in a good economic place, okay? Some of these kids, the only social impact and team play they get is at school. If we see rate increases such as these, you're essentially taking that away from some of those athletes. I feel that we can, if I was looking at any of those options, I would suggest option 4, and I get it. I understand costs of services are going up, everything's going up. I think to jump straight to a 100% increase on the rates for a nonprofit soccer institution, I think it's a little bit too much at this point. Like I said, the impacts it's going to have on these athletes, you may force families to choose which kid is actually going to be able to play soccer that season. Or they may not even have the option to play at all, which may be their only outlet in life, leaning on fellow athletes, making new friends, making new bonds. So I'd ask that if you're going to choose an option, choose 4. I would suggest personally putting together an ad hoc committee of some sort and have the Parks and Rec Commission work directly with whether it's baseball, soccer, the large organizations, and come up with a creative way where we can soften the blow to these families. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you wouldn't mind stating your name for the record.
Yeah, good evening. My name's Darren Chin. Thank you for your time. I'm here representing AYSO also. I'm a coach, I'm a referee, and I'm also a parent. AYSO has been a foundational part of my growth as a person. I was an AYSO player for many years as a youth. I'm a Corona resident, and I interact with hundreds of Corona kids on a weekly basis, 3 days a week, multiple hours. And as the last speaker mentioned, many of these kids have special needs. They come from families that aren't well off. And this provides an unparalleled outlet for them to socialize, to learn new skills, to even develop teamwork and leadership skills. A lot of the youth also turn into volunteers, refereeing, cleaning up, helping to organize. This is one of the few organizations that I know of that has so many kids and so many people volunteering, and it's not for profit, right? Everybody here is doing it on their own time and on their own volition. Nobody's getting paid. So when I look up there and I see, hey, of the different categories that are getting grouped together in this rate hike increase, it's kind of troubling that the nonprofit ones get their increase doubled. And by the way, ours is going from 4 to 20, so it's actually more than double. But yet all of the profit ones, they went up a less amount, both percentage-wise and dollar amount, going from 10 to 20, that's $10 an hour. But for us, again, 4 to 20. All of those other categories were going up a few bucks here, a few bucks there, not up to 10. So I question why that's happening and why it's putting the nonprofits at the biggest disadvantage when it comes to these hikes. I also noted that Riverside had $2.58 per hour, up to 8. There's a slash and an 8. What are they doing? Can we look into what they might be doing to help facilitate the costs for their youth athletics in the nonprofit sector? And then lastly, again, I find it a mistake bundling all of these organizations together as a group when an organization like AYSO, which is totally 100% nonprofit, develops over 1,000 kids each season and is one of the most affordable programs for kids, that one should probably be, if anything could be kept, I would say that one seems to be the one where maybe we don't group it with everything else. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Hokenettle. I've been a resident of Corona since 2008. I have 2 children in AYSO soccer, and I am also a referee. I was reviewing the capital improvement plan documentation, looking at the strategic goals for the community. I just wanted to point out a couple of goals that I was reading. Goal number 3 talks about enhancing parks and rec facilities to develop and enhance parks, trails, rec facilities to better serve our residents. Goal number 5 talked about increasing access to rec activities, increasing accessibility, and ensuring all residents have equitable access to city services and spaces. I'll get back to why I wanted to point those out, but the equitable access to these spaces, you will lose that if you increase the rates from 4 to 20. Like the previous speakers pointed out, there will be people priced out of sports in Corona. They will be priced out of AYSO. So please consider those strategic initiatives that you guys have put in writing. I also wanted to just maybe pose a hypothetical question to you guys. I know that the budget is about $1.7 million, and this will only get us to about $1 million. As a ref who runs around on those fields with the kids, I'm very curious to know what that money is going to. The fields are not watered. They're dirt patches and weeds. If I'm gonna pay an increased fee, I wanna know what that's going to, because my kids are banging up their knees, banging up their elbows. These conditions are not safe. The other thing I'll point out, the 14% cost recovery, you mentioned the fields. I would argue that the fields are a common good. When AYSO, when T-ball, when Little League are not on those fields, they are open to the public and should be considered a common good rather than the category you guys put them in. The last thing I'll point out here is Chino, I believe on your presentation, had $10 an hour. I played there, or my kids played there about 3 weeks ago. Those fields are beautiful. They had AstroTurf on their entire facility, and some of their other fields down in Chino, in the valley, are beautiful Bermuda grass that I would love to play golf on. They are that nice. So my recommendation, option 5, come up with something else. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alyssa Gomerick. I am here representing AYSO. I am a parent, a coach, a referee, and I am also the Assistant Regional Commissioner for Region 37. I reached out to several of the local AYSOs after last week's meeting. Of the ones that got back to me quickly, just for everybody else here, this is what some of these regions said they were paying. Upland pays $2.50 an hour. Rancho Cucamonga and Diamond Bar said they are not charged at all. Riverside said they were paying approximately that $2.50. With lights, they're only paying $12. French Valley's paying $6.42. Beaumont's paying $5. Redlands pays $5, and that includes lights and field striping, which costs us about $40,000 per year. As of right now, we went through our budget to estimate what we need to raise our fees to. Last year, we were $60,000 in the red. Luckily, we have a large enough pool of registration that we have enough reserve funds that we've been slowly increasing our rates due to the inflationary costs post-COVID. With your increased rates, to break even, we would need to be much closer to $300 than the estimate you guys provided. Our program does much more than just teach kids how to kick a ball. Almost all of the training I have gone through as a coach, a referee, and a board member speaks about how we are not here to just teach kids how to play soccer, but that we are here to help these kids learn how to be good citizens, how to work together, how to learn how to lose properly, how to face adversity. I went to our expo last year, and the big push at our expo last year was about the adults as volunteers serving as mentors to the children. And AYSO provided certifications in how to identify when our players needed more supports, how to reach out to them, and how to reach them in those ways. I cannot tell you the number of times I get emails from coaches telling me that they have a kid that's getting dropped off and they have never seen the parents other than the first day. And what am I supposed to do to this? If you raise the rates like this, those kids won't show up, and we won't have the access to improve our community by helping those kids. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Patricia Mallory Baldwin. I am part of AYSO Region 37. I sit on the board, but I am also the head coach of our EPIC program. Our EPIC program stands for Everybody Plays in Our Community. It is our region's special needs / disabilities soccer program. And I am here today to be a voice for my players and their families. I started coaching special needs soccer 5 years ago with Region 37, and we only had 8 players. Today, I currently have 65 players, ranging in the age of 3 to 20, and I am so proud of the diversity and the fact that we represent a plethora of demographics in our program. When parents and caregivers are asked what they like most about the program, or what they enjoy most about our program, the number one answer is always it's affordable and it's safe. My objective tonight is to make you all aware of the negative impact the proposed fee increase will not only have on the EPIC program, but AYSO and the community. I believe this increase will disproportionately affect our low-income families, as well as exacerbate the inequalities of our special needs community. And I think we can all agree they deal with enough. This exorbitant increase in permanent fees will decrease participation, which will obviously affect our youth in many ways. And I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence and read how it will affect them socially, emotionally, physically, but especially for my special needs kids, this is all they have. And we are very fortunate that we have families right now who are able to pay their kids' fees on their core teams, but also provide extra money that allow my teams to have scholarships so that we're able to give these families a lower fee so that they can participate, because their kids have other needs besides soccer, and this is the one program that brings them so much joy. Along with this program, I not only am pouring into my special needs players, but my program also offers a bridge to to inclusion. We invite core teams to come. We've invited Corona PD, our local firemen, our Boy Scouts. They come and we're providing them a bridge. We're teaching them, what our players are all about. We're developing friendships, bonds. I'm giving resources to other agencies in this community so that they can also have a tangible experience with my program so they can in turn promote us. I'll just say that AYSO is a recreational soccer program. I think our fees need to represent that. You guys have city parks. I think those fees need to represent that also. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I've got a few more speaker cards here, and do we have any more waiting over there? Okay. I'll ask, I believe it's Dave Claypool? Dave Claypool? Benjamin Rios, Lindsay Ari Caberi, and German Diaz.
Hello, my name is Doug Claypool, and I'm the president of Corona Girls Softball Association. Our organization is a nonprofit organization completely run by volunteers, sponsorship support, and participation from its members. The organization is an all players will play, and our mission is to provide an enjoyable and memorable experience for players ages 4 to 18 years old and at all skill levels. We are committed to teach positive life lessons, good sportsmanship, winning and losing with pride, and teamwork. Most importantly, we are developing the qualities of citizenship and leadership through the game of softball. Our organization has been part of the City of Corona for approximately 65 years. I believe it was in 2017 when we started being charged for the use of the fields, which is understandable. Our fees are currently, for our registration, $225 per player for the spring season, which is 6 months long. The $225 per player does not cover the expenditures for the season. Therefore, we fundraise and solicit sponsorships to make an approximate $10,000 shortfall to keep our registration fees affordable for the players, for the families. Every season, we have several families asking for help with their fees. The league gives 3 to 5 scholarships per season for families in need. The proposed $20 an hour for field usage, a $500 or 500% increase from the current fee, would raise our fees from approximately $22,509 a season to approximately $96,000 a season. Please think long and hard about what this decision would do to the youth in our city of Corona. It's like people are not going to be able to afford to play it, and it would literally kill our league if that happened. We went from having 1,400 girls in our league, we're down at 400 because of other leagues that joined in the area, Eastvale, Harupa, all these leagues that weren't around 65 years ago. So we're struggling to stay ahead right now, and this increase would kill us. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Benjamin Rios Jr., and I am a resident of the great city of Corona. Thank you again for taking the time to listen to our concerns. I wrote something here, I'm going to read it. I was informed by another league member that soccer is just kicking a ball, which does not add any value to a child or society. If that is all they did, then I would agree with the report that just came out and was submitted. I wonder if that person or persons who compiled that report ever played an organized sport. I think not. All sport teams teach kids how to work hard to achieve a goal, how to work as a team to win games, how to work in unison as a team to score a goal or hit a home run. Knowing what it is to become a champion with teamwork and hard work, knowing the agony of defeat, which makes this child work harder to become a champion for the next season. I guess all that I just mentioned is just kicking a ball. Adds no value to whatever it takes to be a great citizen of Corona. One question that is always asked in a job interview is, do you work well with others? With the rate increase, 50% of the kids will not be able to answer that question because they had no team sport, nothing to go by to say, yes, I work well with others. How is that not a community and character builder? As you know already, the Corona School Board District, as I mentioned last week, is now Titled I, which is more than 50% of its students are now low income. If they're low income, how are they supposed to play football, soccer, t-ball, pony ball? I guess all of them is just throwing a ball, which doesn't add value to them. Kicking a soccer ball doesn't add value. The company that compiled this report, I guess you're just looking at the dollar amount and not the demographics. They made a decision based on dollar with no human concern. I ask each of you to take a good look at the report and then decide, is sports teaching something to our citizens or not? Now I would like for the council and those that compiled the report to just indulge me for a minute. I know my time is up, but I want you to think about this. I would like for you guys to close your eyes, please. Just everybody close your eyes. Picture a family, 5, mommy and a daddy, and 3 little kids. The parents called a meeting. We're all sitting at the kitchen table. The kids were wondering what's going on. Mommy and daddy started to say that since the rate increase came into effect, we can't afford to keep all you in sports. Daddy begins with, we talked about it, and
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Lindsay Rickaberry, and I am a proud mother of 4 beautiful children. We play for Corona Pony and also AYSO. We have recently started soccer, and I love being the team mom. Seeing how many parents volunteer for both leagues is truly amazing. We have been with Pony for almost 4 years now. That community has become a family to us. It has brought parents together, but more importantly, it has built friendships between our children that mean the world to us. When we walk to our fields, I can't tell you how many people we say hi to and how many families stop us to say hi. Sports have taught my children discipline, inclusion, sportsmanship, and healthy habits. Playing sports should not be a luxury to children, it should be their right. Today, I asked my children how they would feel if we were unable to sign them up for sports anymore. And they asked if you could please see it from their perspective. Please don't take something away from them that they worked so hard at. They said they would be sad and definitely cry. We are one of the families that will be affected by the price increase. We cannot afford that high of a spike, and we will not be registering if this plan moves forward, nor will a lot of other families. So where will the extra money come from for the master plan if no one is registering? I will not stop fighting this increase. It is so disappointing to see how this is affecting children in this city. We have many family friends that do not sign their kids up for sports solely due to the fact that it is too expensive already, and their families cannot afford it. Not only do we pay the already pricey registration costs, but that doesn't include any equipment to play the actual sport. It's grass. We are paying for grass, not great grass. I fully understand inflation is affecting everyone, but we must work harder at solving this as a community and not taking activities away from children. When my husband and I married and moved in together, I practically begged him to move from LA to Corona. Corona has been my home since I was a small child. I played for CGSA and AYSO. It is a large city with a small town feel. I told him this is the perfect place to raise a family, and it has been. We are trying so hard to hang in there with everything else increasing in price around us. Our weekends at the park have been an escape for us. Watching our kids do something they love and have worked so hard for is the best feeling in the world. High-fiving their longtime friends, tipping their hats to parents after each game to thank them for everything they do to keep them on that field. Try and convince me sports aren't teaching our kids how to be great citizens. My husband works for the state of California, and we both have full-time jobs. We are barely making ends meet and currently looking for additional jobs as we speak. I leave games early to get to work. My children know that our rule is they need to be involved in some extracurricular activity to keep them active. Whatever they choose is up to them. They love when we say it's time to get ready for practice or time to get ready for a game. They practically run out the door into the car. While our kids are going to practice, other kids on our street are heading down the hill to do drugs with the homeless. I see it every day. This plan will affect us immensely. You will be taking that away from our family and a lot of other families in Corona. Please do what's in the best interest of the children. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Diaz? And if behind Mr. Diaz, we could get Angelica Martinez, Ben Rogers, and Felipe Rodriguez, and Mr. Rory Connell. Go ahead, floor is yours.
Thank you, guys. My name is Germán Diaz, resident of Corona since 2012. I'm a parent of dad of 4 kids, 9 through 14 years old. And I ain't come up here with a graph or something to, something prepared. I was gonna just tell you guys how it is. As I was leaving the house, my 10-year-old looked at me and he's all, "Dad, where are you going?" I'm gonna go to the city council, right? "Or are you gonna go talk about the fee increase?" I'm like, yeah. And he looked at me and he's all, "I love you, Dad, thank you." All right, so we're a single income family household. Just trying to make it happen, trying to hang on like everybody else, most of us, right? What kind of impact will this have? Tremendous. Like Ben said, I probably have to look at one and say, you're the chosen one this season or this year, right? I don't think any one of us here is imposed of helping out with the increasing cost, inflation. We get it, right? But this jump from $4 to $20 is just too steep. I won't be able to hang with it. A lot of people here probably won't either. That's why we're all here. There's got to be a better way of handling this. Can we allocate funds from somewhere else to, for what we need to do with our parks? If I have to choose an option, I would choose 5. We got to do better than this. There's got to be somewhere. There's got to be another way to do this. Those things we have on Main Street each year, where the same bands come every year and people drink their beer and everybody just hangs out there. I don't know where that money comes from, but let's take some of that money and throw it over here to the parks. I don't know. I mean, that's just, me speaking out loud. Just please think about this, because you're having a major impact on a lot of people, a lot of these kids. Again, 4 kids, they've all played ASO, they've all played baseball. And if this goes through, I don't know what we're gonna do. The last thing I want them is sitting at home on their iPad all day, eating junk food. So please help us out here. Take everything into consideration, and we appreciate your time. We appreciate your work. This is your job. This is your profession. We understand that, but have more consideration and step outside of the box, if you have to. And we're all willing to work together. Let's try to make this happen. Let's make this work. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Angelica Martinez, and I'm here today with my daughter Ava. As a concerned parent and active member of our community, I want to address the City of Corona's proposed increase in field use fees that will significantly impact registration costs for youth sports organizations within our city. My family has lived in the City of Corona for nearly 15 years, and for the past 9 years, we have actively participated in youth sports in our community. My husband and I have had the privilege to manage multiple teams a season, spending 6 days a week at various parks in our community, and are proud to have mentored many players in our community through AYSO, Corona Girls Softball Association, Friday Night Lights, and Corona American Little League, dedicating countless hours to fostering friendships and creating lasting memories for our children and their friends. We are invested in our community and committed to providing a safe space for our players and families to learn the game of baseball while building friendships. As a proud current board member at Corona American Little League, a nonprofit youth organization, I represent a group of committed and unpaid parent volunteers who have invested countless hours maintaining and caring for the city fields that you have lacked to providing for us. Prior to our players joining us for practice and game days, our volunteers cleaned dugouts of debris, including bullet casings, steak knives, broken glass, drug paraphernalia. Our league invests revenue back into our city parks, particularly at Mountain Gate Park, where we have removed and replaced clay and pitching mounds, repaired potholes, purchased large equipment for field maintenance, upgraded appliances in our snack bar, have held multiple field days to repair fields where flooding has consistently destroyed our efforts, and have temporarily fixed fencing issues. We have at times even taken it upon ourselves to clean and stock public restrooms to ensure our families have access to essential facilities. Since our league uses these fields 6 days a week, we prioritize the safety of our families, working to protect them from potential dangers, including sexual predators and drug users who have been known to frequent our local parks. We actively deter irresponsible behaviors that can harm our fields and community. Without our presence, the parks and fields in our community become susceptible to decline. While I appreciate the general estimate presented this evening that the city believes it would cost my family to participate in youth sports, I would like to share that last spring registration fees totaled $873 for my children, $238 for Pony, $410 for 2 players at Corona American, $225 for CGSA. The proposed increase could mean that each organization would increase their fees by a minimum of $50 per player and increase my fee of $200 to and include an additional financial strain, making my spring registration for my 4 children to play in youth sports in this city over $1,000 in spring of 2025. It is important to remember that these registration fees do not cover essential sports gear, such as cleats, gloves, and other equipment. Youth sports are vital for our community, our development, offering physical activity and important life skills. An increase in registration fees could deter participation, limiting access for our families already facing financial challenges. I urge our city leaders to consider this proposal and engage the community to find alternative solutions that maintain affordable access to youth sports for all families in Corona. Our nonprofit organizations are crucial to ensuring that our children and families can safely enjoy the sports that they deserve. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Ben Rogers. I'm here on resident of Corona, here on behalf of Cameron and Bradley Rogers, my 2 boys, 8-year-old and 10-year-old. Before I comment on what I want to say, I think on the report, when I believe the comment was it came in quite a bit higher than we expected, I think that's when it's time to go back to the drawing board. And again, I don't have insight into the report, but that's not okay. There's got to be a better way. But what I really want to talk about is the Corona Parks. For anybody that has played, and you know, makes me so proud to be part of this community and hearing some of my fellow residents speak. But anybody that's been to Butterfield Park and knows that it can be 110 up on Main Street and still be 52 below at Butterfield Park with 30 mile per hour gale winds. Mountain Gate has no parking. El Cerrito, there can be 2 games going on and there's 4,000 cars parked there, but it's charm. And it's these parks. And these parks are what make this community what it is. And if you think of going to these parks and listening to baseballs being thrown, bats being hit, the sound of sneakers, laughter, kids fighting over snacks. With this increase, it's not going to be there. And with the rest of my time, I'd like to stand here and listen to what these parks will sound like. A lot of people have come up here and said some amazing things, but I think the silence of what could be can speak volumes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Felipe Rodriguez, a Corona resident. I don't know how I can come after that with that moment of silence for our parks. If anything hits you at the heart, it's that moment of silence, because that is a profound impact on what's going to happen. Before I get started, one of the things I couldn't pass up on the fact that in the report they happen to mention the reason why the fees haven't gone up is government employees. They made a mistake. And yet the taxpayers are having to pony up the cost of that. City employees didn't catch the fee increases and let it stay status quo for years. And now we're being punished for that. Why? Another thing I want to talk about is who played devil's advocate during this research? Who was the devil's advocate? Everything in your charts showed money, 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 money going up, going up, going up. Where is the stats on we lose 10% of our registration across the boards? This is how much money we're going to lose. We lose 25% of sports registration. This is how much we're going to lose. 50% of registration. Where is that number? Where is that number of how much potential the revenue of the city will be lost because families like myself will go to other communities? Now I'm a parent of two. One played pony, one played soccer. We got to experience AYSO for years at Santana Park. When we played pony and AYSO, one thing I noticed, coaches and parents were grooming the fields. Coaches and parents were setting up the ball fields and soccer fields. Coaches and parents were doing all the work on those fields. For over 8 years, those fields never improved. Why? It's been status quo. Once my daughter went into club soccer, that's when the light went off or went on. Playing club soccer, we don't just play in Corona. We go to all these neighboring communities. And one thing that was very well noticed, all these other neighboring communities, their parks are great. Like the speakers before me said, in Chino, turf fields, Bermuda grass fields. Fontana was on that list. They've got stellar fields. What do Corona parks look like? Trash. My daughter plays on a club sport, on a club soccer team. Their home field is Eagle Glen. That is an embarrassment of a field to be called a club soccer field. Other cities around come to play us, and they got to play on that field. AYSO, same thing, dirt. It is an embarrassment. And lastly, like they mentioned, where's my investment? I wouldn't mind paying so much money, but where is the investment? It's going nowhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rory Connell. I'm a resident of District 5. I've lived in the city of Corona since 1991. I'm a father, a youth leader. Thank God I am not a coach. I'm a failed city council candidate, but most importantly, I am a taxpayer. As a taxpayer who is involved in the community, I know that the word recommendation holds no weight for you three, because your recommendations have not been heard. That's why we are missing two parks commissioners who are very good people. So with that being said, to all the people in the back of the room, I'm going to speak to you. They give recommendations to your council. Your council is who votes those recommendations in. And I will remind you that the majority of the council that you're dealing with voted for a sales tax increase, turned around and gave city employees, many of them, a 20% raise. They've raised your water rates twice in their tenure. Your electricity has gone up, your gas has gone up, in your car, at home, inflation. I even got a bill for a permit for my home alarm this month. So when you can't park at your child's youth facility, or the park ranger is ticketing you because they've given out permits for pass-through facilities for organized sports, you can thank your city council. And when you thank your city council, I want you to remember who recommended, once again, you vote for them. It's the city employees. So you, every single person in this room, thank you for coming. You're an involved parent. You talk to other parents, go back to your schools and your sports teams. Local elections are nonpartisan. You shouldn't feel uncomfortable talking local politics because it's not about red or blue. It's about what's best for your community and your children. So once again, I strongly recommend you do not vote for who the city employees tell you to vote for. Because when you wonder why our fields look like crap, when you wonder why we don't have AstroTurf but Chino does, take a look at Transparent California. That's where you can look up what every single person in this room makes. And I can guarantee you in this room, with less than 10 staff members, you probably have close to $1 million in annual salary. So that's where your money's going. And thank you for warming seats for all of us, because we know your recommendation won't be heard.
Yeah. Okay, next group, Mr. Ian Miller, Ruben Pedroza, Catherine Minard, and Rich Simpson, please.
Hello, Ian Miller, President of Corona National, back again, 3 times in, 1 month? Fantastic. Okay, so I appreciate the presentation and the work that went into it. However, I think it obscures the real question here, which is, why is the city changing its position on youth sports? All of the consultants and special meetings still resulted with families shouldering the cost burden. In 2021, the city raised sales tax 1%. Why are we now in a situation where we have to pay the increased sales tax and a youth sports tax? What are you doing to make it easier to afford to thrive in this city? The Community Services Department and the Commission justified the youth sports tax increase as making us competitive with other cities' fees. Why are we trying to be competitive in raising the cost of joining youth sports? Why not instead be unique in the value that we provide for our residents? In the grand scheme of the city budget, $1.7 million is a drop in the bucket. But because it targets such a small group of people, it becomes a burden when placed squarely on the families who want to get their kids involved in this community activity. In fact, the new city park will cost $160 million. So for 1% of that budget, you could cover your maintenance costs for the year. You could do it for 10 years. In fact, what happens when you build that park and then have to maintain it? If the only relief given of the options is that you delay the increase, then this is just boiling the frog slowly. The only fair option is to fund your maintenance by spreading the cost across the entire community and eliminate permit fees entirely. Our sports leagues fill a hole in services that this city cannot provide on its own at a cost because we are volunteer nonprofits. You guys can't do it. So you need to recognize that, be respectful of these organizations, and eliminate the fees entirely. Figure out another way to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Catherine. I am here as someone who volunteers for Corona American Little League. My son has played with the league since 2020. My stepson plays for Corona National, and I have a 3-year-old who will be, hopefully, if we can afford it, playing youth sports when she turns 4 next year. I know you guys are categorizing us as a skills-based organization, but when you sit in the dugout with these kids, that is not what we are. We are a community-based organization. Corona American held a fundraiser for their Corona Animal Shelter last spring. Corona National has the Challenger League, which is a special ed league. And these organizations are doing so much more than teaching baseball. That's not what any of us are there for. I volunteered for my son every single season as team mom. And you know what I do? I go in and I water the fields and I chalk the fields. And someone drags the fields and I clean up beer cans and I clean up cigarettes before my kids enter the dugout. My kids being the 9 to 13 kids I'm taking care of that day, right? These parks are hardly usable. When you go and I watch my nephew play soccer somewhere else or baseball somewhere else, our bathrooms at Mountain Gate generally are not usable. There is no soap. The hand dryers don't work. They're clogged. People talked about the parking issue, but we still go and we show up every single Saturday for these games and at least twice a week for practices. I have 3 kids that I want to be involved in sports. I want them to know how to be on a team. I want them to know how to treat people. I want them to know how to win and how to lose. And I already work 3 jobs, and then I'm the team mom on top of it. And I will simply not be able to afford to put any of my kids in any sport. And it doesn't just affect if I want to put them somewhere else. Oh, Corona American's raising their rates. Well, so is Pony, and so is National, and so is soccer. Where are the 25% of our Corona residents or children? Where are they to turn when their parents can't afford an outlet for them? Where do they go? What do they do? So I strongly, strongly recommend that there is another option, because as the speaker in front of me said, pushing it out to 4 years does not seem like the best option. The best option seems to be to find the funds elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rich Simpson. I represent Corona National Little League on the board there. So a couple things. Last week, I presented on some data regarding youth sports and the community benefits to that. So, my strong recommendation, I think it's an easy one too, is that youth sports leagues be designated as community health and well-being services. Simple fix. I know there's probably more involved with that, but I really appreciated Ms. Finch's presentation because it helped me realize kind of what I suspected, that the idea of these different service categories wasn't really, there wasn't a lot of research done with it and a lot of thought put into it, and that significant impact that youth sports has. And I really strongly recommend that the city council consider watching over all of these testimonies, because I think we see how much of a benefit it is to our community to have our youth involved in sports. A couple other things. Several I've mentioned already, the volunteers. Many of us volunteer as parents, as coaches, as board members on many different levels. Field maintenance is huge, especially for baseball fields. That's done by volunteers. The only thing the city does is mow the grass and probably some seasonal treatment and things like that. But a lot of the dirt and the maintenance is done on a weekly, nightly basis, including by our older youth, who we teach to do proper baseball field maintenance. My son himself knows how to maintain a baseball field. I know we need also a decision here pretty quick because all of us are, I'm sure, planning on opening our spring registration here. So I do want to note that. We do need to think about that. Also, from the market analysis of hourly rates from other cities, glaringly missing from that list are our closest neighbors, Eastvale, Norco, and Temescal Valley. I suspect all of them pay 0 to very little for their field usage as well. If you average out the cities that are on this list, and excluding the two ridiculously high ones, Marietta and Rancho Cucamonga, the average comes out to $9.38. I think that's a pretty reasonable rate there, okay? And then also, I just want to, mention that at the end of the day, it's about the community, and the Everyone Plays option is a part of the Corona community, and I don't see why that would be eliminated. Even with the defunct group, it makes sense to keep that and to keep our leagues going strong here in Corona. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, after Mr. Pedroza, we get Dalia Cortino, Joe Morgan, Stacy Moser.
Hello. One, I'd like to thank you for the time to talk. I had come with speech in mind, but as I sat back there listening to all of the different parents and volunteers speaking, one of the things that struck me really is the concern. One of the previous speakers mentioned that the Corona School District was now a Title I school district, meaning more than half the students are low income. And I think the outpouring that you see is more reflective of the concern for the greater good, which is one of the classifications that was used for the park. I think that needs to be an elevated concern. I'm speaking as a coach and a volunteer as part of AYSO. It's a completely volunteer, nonprofit organization. I'm sure there's equivalents in soccer and football. When you go out on a Saturday and you see all of the people that are there giving their time, or any day of the week really, if you were to drive to Santana Park, you would see so many people out there giving their time, not for their benefit and not directly for the benefit of their children, but for the greater community. And I think the concern, what I hear, the emotion that is being projected, is the fear that these rate increases are going to make it cost prohibitive for those folks in our community that are less financially stable or maybe already struggling to afford the current rates. And the increases that all of the different organizations would have to do to be able to pay the increases, it's going to shut a lot of people out of those programs. And the concern there is then what happens to those kids. So I would encourage this group to please go back, maybe make another or add another secondary classification for nonprofit volunteer organizations where you go back to the reduced rate and recommend to the city another form of subsidy. Use funds that are being used for another purpose. Scale back the new park on 6th Street and maybe allocate funds there for the betterment of the existing parks that we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dalia Carteno. I have 2 children that play at Corona American Little League. I am here today to tell you how Corona American and the use of these parks have impacted our family and how the increase can potentially affect our family. I am a single mom of 3, and after my separation, my oldest son went into a terrible depression. There was no way of getting him out of his room. The emotional eating started. He went through weight gain, and it went as far as developing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. One day after finding his team pictures, he asked that I sign him up for baseball again, which was music to my ears considering the circumstances. We went back to Corona American, to what once was our home, and we were met with Coach Marlon, Coach Carlos Martinez, and Coach Sal de la Fuente. I should note that every coach, every board member, every team parent, and everyone pours into these kids, volunteers their time. These coaches have been devoted to their teams, and my son included. They have spent days and hours helping my son improve and grow with his team. Very welcoming and patient, they have put our boys through the toughest challenges through discipline and teaching our kids about responsibility, accountability, and helping them grow and test their own potential. Being here, I have slowly watched the light come back to my son and crawl out of his depression. I watch him shed the weight and become healthier and happy to be a part of what we call a brotherhood. The use of these parks, the league, and the coaches have saved my son's life. Both my sons have grown here. My son has reversed his fatty liver, and my sons have also created families. Families and friends we can celebrate a Dodgers win with. Family we can celebrate birthdays and holidays with. And for me, more than anything, a family I can call in case of an emergency. You see, these parks are more than a park to us, more than a place we come to hang out and try to win a game. These parks are our getaway from a bad depression, our gym pass, and our memories. I am a single mom again, and having one son in sports was easy, but two has been a bit on the tougher side to even make registration. I already do Uber Eats on the side, and some of you have even met my children selling lemonade in the off-season. With this potential increase, I will not afford to keep both kids playing, let alone one. I fear to pull my kids from baseball because I've seen how our lives have transformed here and fear falling back into depression. These prices shouldn't go up at such a high cost because I believe recreational activities should remain accessible to people of all income levels. If prices increase, low-income families or individuals may be excluded from enjoying these activities because, as my testimony has proven, you not only offer affordability, you also offer mental and physical health benefits. I pray and hope that you take my speech, as many of others here, to heart when making an option. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stacy Moser. I'm also known as Coach Stacy. I'm involved with youth baseball. I've started right after high school in 1979 with East Placentia Little League, West Placentia Little League, Corona National, and Corona Pony Youth Baseball. I've been managing baseball for 36 years, and if you times that by 2, because usually I'm doing a fall and a spring team, and many times I'm doing multiple teams at one time. Mr. Diaz, Herman, I had the honor of coaching his son for a couple of years. He's a great kid, a great family. I've been through T-ball to high school 3 times already, and right now I have a 14 and under baseball team and a T-ball team of 8 3- and 4-year-olds right now trying to learn how to play baseball. It would be sad to see these people not be able to come out and sign up and play. They do get more than just baseball. They get skills, they get a chance to meet other kids. You meet friends and classmates that you'll find out in high school that you played together before. And that's another thing. This is just, we're talking youth sports right now. After this, there's high school and there's college. And I would hate to see some of our kids not ever get to a good high school level or even get to a good college. We have many good sports people from this city. I've had a pleasure of coaching a few that have made it off to professional baseball. I still keep in contact with them. I've been to their weddings. I've been to their kids' bar mitzvahs and baptisms. It seems like nonprofits shouldn't be paying such a high rate. If you could keep it down as low as possible. I also would like to see option 5, which is other. Yeah, you know, prolonging it the best you can, doubling it up in 1 year is just going to kill everybody. But take a long look. Where is the money going? Is it going for the fields? Is it going for the sports programs? Because I know with Corona American and National and Pony, we take care of our fields. We drag it, chalk it, water it, fix the plumbing, pull the weeds, clean up the trash, and that's just the part that I do. The rest of the league does a whole lot more. I have a daughter on the board, a son-in-law that's also a board member. He has 2 teams, I have 2 teams. That's 4 games during the weekend and 8 practices during the week. So we spread our time thin. It's all just voluntary work. So please consider keeping the cost down for youth sports as much as possible. It's a breeding ground for our future. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Joe Morgan. I'm a lifer here. So I actually played on the Reds at Butterfield growing up. I got to give everybody a little context in here. Up until 2018, we didn't charge. We charged for lights, and that was it. This whole fee was about keeping people from overbooking fees. It wasn't about cost recovery. It never was about cost recovery. It was just a way to keep this league from, grabbing 50% more. I mean, this bit about vacant fields and all this kind of stuff. You notice there's no numbers. There's no documentation for that. Nobody's ever actually, quantified that or said, well, these 3 fields were open for these hours. Nobody's actually looked at it. This is nothing but just nonsense to justify this. The city doesn't need this money. They never charged this before. So from 1886 until 2018, these fees were never charged. These are parks. This is what people pay taxes for. This is the whole reason why you have a city. So, and to move like these all-play leagues into the same category, even near the same category as for-profit leagues, is disgusting. It's disgusting. Okay? If this isn't community well-being and health, I don't know what is. That's what these groups do. So they should definitely be at the bottom, but you really shouldn't even be charging anything more than just to keep some parks commissioners who are no longer here. So I would remind everybody in this room, tonight's sort of, I don't want to disparage Kabuki Theater, but this is just Kabuki Theater, okay? They're not listening to you. They don't give a shit what you say. The only thing that matters is what happens tomorrow. Everybody that's here needs to be here tomorrow because this doesn't matter. All this is an attempt to sort of burst the balloon a little bit, to let a little bit of the pressure off, to let people think that they've been heard. You're not being heard by talking at this commission. It's been very clear that the council doesn't care what this commission, staff doesn't care. Staff doesn't care what this says. That's why Michelle and Amy left, because the staff doesn't care what this Parks Commission said. I don't understand why anybody would want to serve on this commission. I like all you guys. I have no problems with you, but I don't understand why you'd even do it. So if you want to make a difference, show up tomorrow night at 6:30, because that's where the actual decision's getting made. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have a few more down to the final 5 unless anyone else decides they want to speak. Can I get Andrea? Oops, Andrea? Thank you. Victoria, Al Vigil, David Burwell, and Sonia Martinez, please.
Hi, my name's Andrea Middlestat. I'm born and raised in Corona, lived here my whole life. I'm kind of here representing what a lot of people have referred to as the low income. I currently live below the poverty line. I have 3 children. I'm a single mom. I work 6 days a week. Sorry, my voice is scratchy. I literally came from work, went, got my son from daycare, took him to his t-ball game. Luckily got my grandma to come, his grandma to come sit in with him so I could be here for this meeting. I come from a low poverty family. All my friends growing up, we literally, if you weren't in a sport, you were on the streets doing drugs, getting in trouble, going to juvenile hall. Luckily for me, my mom made it happen. So I played basketball for 9 years with Corona Parks and Rec right here at this gym. I currently have 3 children under the age of 14 who play basketball, indoor soccer, Corona National League, have played with Corona American Little League. And I'm here to say I have them in these sports. Their fathers are not involved in their lives, have nothing to do with them. And taking them to these sports and these games, these practices, letting them connect with other male figures, female figures, people who have their whole life situated better than I ever did and better than I currently do. These are images for them to model after, where I can't fill the gaps, where I'm trying to learn how to. So it's not just a support for our kids, it's a support for us single moms, us low-income families who want to break the systemic issues. The other thing I want to touch on is, okay, so we raise all these rates. Parents like me obviously can't afford it, that's obvious. What are we gonna do for our kids? We do the best we can, but we have to work so much to pay to keep the lights on, to pay for the car insurance and everything. So what do our kids do? They start getting in trouble, getting in drugs, getting in crime. What's gonna happen? They're gonna end up homeless or in the jails, overloading our system here. We already have a homelessness problem. It has been going on for a lot of years. 4th Street Park, 6th Street Park, overrun. All these people are mentioning about these drugs and paraphernalia out on the fields. That's where it's coming from. We haven't stopped the systemic issue. We need to make these community outreach programs, which is what I consider all these sports things, more accessible, not less accessible. So I don't want to waste any more of your time. Thank you guys for listening to me. Sorry I didn't have actually anything prepared, but have a good night, y'all.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Victoria Silva, and I will apologize because this gets me very emotional. I moved from Buena Park back in 1999 as a single mother with a 7, a 5, and a 3-year-old. I had to work. I had to put them in daycare. I had to find something for them to do after work. I got involved with the city of Corona with the programs that they have. They had indoor soccer. I enrolled them. That was their sport. Then I became familiar with AYSO. And I've been involved with AYSO since 2000. My kids play there. Back then, we had over 4,000 kids. We were everywhere. Schools, Promenade Park, Citrus, everywhere. My kids now are grown up. They have their own kids. I have 9 grandkids. 7 of them play sports. I have 2 grandkids that come from Buena Park twice a week for soccer practice because they like Corona. And we're here. Our parks, you guys built skate parks that brought drugs, smoking, fights. Our fields this season were closed. We were not able to use some of our fields because they were not ready for our games. You guys want to raise fees. I invite you guys to come to Santana Park so you can see those faces of those kids when they're playing soccer. Go to cheer. We have the non-competitives there. I get up. I'm one of the volunteers that gets up at 5:30 in the morning to be at the fields to help out those kids, to help the coaches, to help set up. We have many volunteers that get up at that time to set up our fields. My kids, we were at the soccer fields when they were growing up. I coach, I ref. I'm a team coordinator. I'm a mom. Anything. And thanks to AYSO, and my kids playing until they were 19 years old, no drugs, no problem. Now my grandkids are playing. I have 2 daughters, single parents. How are they going to afford paying our fees? Because we're going to have to go up to between $300 and $400 per player. I do thank you, but I do want to invite you to come a Saturday and see our kids play. Any sport, baseball, softball, soccer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Burwell. I'm more of a dollar and cents kind of guy. First, I'm a parent. I'm a business owner, very strong supporter, sponsor, and +1 to my wife who volunteers with AYSO. The staff report is done in an ideal situation. Most reports that are done, not just this staff, but staffs in general, they take 3,000 kids are now, the fees go up, divided by 3,000 kids. It's well known that 70 to 80% of the community is paycheck to paycheck and one paycheck away from financial devastation. The fee increase, while it seems small, could put families into financial devastation that they wouldn't be able to recover from, so they do have to make the choice. You've heard that time and time again tonight. Again, back to dollars and cents. Currently, there's about 3,000 players with AYSO, and they pay the city about $90,000 a year. That's roughly 60%. That's 2,000 players divided by 380,000. Simple numbers. It's not going to go up a small dollar amount per player. It's going to go up a substantial amount per player. Currently, that breaks down to about $7,500 a month. The proposed increase jumps $31,500 per month. I do know people in real estate. There are large lots in Corona and in Norco that these could be privately held. If this becomes a mortgage payment, you can buy a whole lot of property to practice on. If these organizations leave the city of Corona, what does that look like for your field maintenance cost? Your field maintenance cost is still the same. These organizations will have their own private fields within the cities, and what dollar amounts does the city get from that? Also keep in mind, it was brought up during the staff report that some of the fields go unused and other people may be able to use those fields. The nets, the goals, and the striping are provided by AYSO. Not sure what it looks like in the other organizations. So would the people who use those at those times compensate the city and compensate AYSO and other organizations? One thing I've noticed when I attend games and practices is there's very little transient activity at Santana Park, at Buena Vista Park. Other parks don't have sports and athletic events going on throughout the week. Those parks definitely have transient activity going on. Again, once those fees are no longer being paid by these organizations, what gets shouldered and burdened onto the residents, which they're already paying for in their own property taxes. I do have a couple more topics, but I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really don't have a ton to say that hasn't already been mentioned. One of the things I do want to mention is when you talk about community well-being, I've been told by a lot of people that normally your room is empty. This is the community that our sports are providing. All these people that are here, there's a lot of people that couldn't be here, but this is the community that come together with the sports. Again, I don't have a lot more to add, but my son wanted to say something. Yeah, that's you. Read what you typed.
You got it.
No, you can't. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I love playing soccer, and I won't be able to play next year if the fee increases, and I will lose half of my closest friends. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, is Al? Okay.
Yes, good evening. My name is Al Vigil. I am the current president of Corona American Little League. I've been involved with Corona American for about 10 years. When I first started with the league, as Joe Morgan mentioned, there were no fees for the fields. We paid for lights. There used to be a third Little League in the city, West Corona Little League. They played over at Butterfield. And that initial fee increase, along with some other things, but that fee increase was the nail that put it in the coffin that ended it all for them. That league had to fold. Those players, luckily, had come. That league had come out of our league at one point back in the 70s, I believe, and so it went back into Corona Americans territory because Little League is built on boundaries. So there's two Little Leagues currently: Corona American, Corona National. Main Street is our main divider, kind of zigzags around, but that's the main thing. We provide, it's a nonprofit group. We keep our fees extremely low as best as we can. Our fees do not even cover 60% of our costs. So the rest is done through fundraising, basically through fundraising and sponsorships. So with this fee increase, we looked at our budgets over the last several years. We've averaged about $20,000 a year between spring and fall in our field fees. This increase, multiply it by 5. It's going to go to $100,000 a year. That is more than any other item in our budget. It triples the amount. So what that's going to translate to is about a $228 fee increase. So going from our 240 to 200 to 450, roughly, is where we would be at. That will definitely price so many of the families out, especially the ones that have multiple kids. We don't turn anyone away for the lack of being able to pay. So we have, we offer scholarships internally. Speaking to the guys that run Norco Little League, they pay $3 a day for their fields, and the city subsidizes with scholarship options. So if over time you guys feel like you need to get to this $20 an hour, you come up with something to give back to the community of the citizens that need help, so that it's not a falling out burden onto the league to try to offer these kids a way to continue to play their sports. Again, thank you for your time. I thank the commission. I thank you guys. Moses does a great job for us. Donna's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have one more speaker card, Mr. John Muro.
Good afternoon. My name is John Murrow. I am the Vice President, Player Agent, and Field Maintenance Coordinator at Corona National. Just kind of want to put in perspective, like the maintenance that's done at the fields. So to start the season, just to get the fields in playable shape, we spent probably a week total out there. Dealing with flooding, dealing with having to put completely new dirt all over the infield. And I know, like me personally, I'm probably out there working on the fields probably more than I'm actually at work. Not an exaggeration. Not to say that the city doesn't do some stuff, but at the end of the day, I have my assistant coach that I've had for 3 years now, that's out there all the time with me. Weed whacking, using the blower, cutting our own grass because it's not cut short enough, pulling weeds, cleaning up around the fields, like all that stuff, that's us. And that's just to make sure that our fields look presentable and nice enough, and we're hosting other leagues, and we're fighting to get kids to come back and play baseball and play Little League, and it's expensive, it's tough, but we have to present ourselves in a way that makes people want to come play with us. We play at Mountain Gate a lot with Corona American. Their fields are rough, and I don't think that's any fault of their league. I think their board works hard, but their fields are in bad shape, and it's been that way for years. 4 years ago, we were considered to have some of the nicest fields in the area. That's no longer the case, and it's pretty sad. It's pretty sad to see that. I was born and raised in Riverside. I moved out here to give my kids a better life, and it sucks that it's becoming more difficult to give them something that should be free. They shouldn't have to pay to get on those fields. I don't know. I think that the effort that we put in, I think we help you guys out just as much as you guys help us out. So please rethink these. And we're here to help you guys out just as much as you guys are to help us out. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Before I move on, is there anybody else who would like to speak on this subject who hasn't already spoken? We had about 25 speakers. Thank you very much for those of you who spoke, and for those of you who didn't speak and are here, thank you very much. It is true, we don't usually get a lot of visitors here, but it's very appreciated that you all are here and sharing what I thought were very passionate, reasonable, rational thoughts and perspectives on the topic. At this point, we're going to chat about it and ask questions of staff that we need to ask, and then we'll kind of discuss. And I will lead off with Mr. Boggs, if you've got any questions or comments about the presentation.
Excuse me, Chair. We did receive 2 written comments. I can read them, or I can
great.
file them with the minutes.
Thank you, please do.
Hello, my name is Brooke, and I'm 22 years of age. I have lived in Corona my whole life and grew up in youth sports. My parents and family gave all they could to give me the opportunity to pursue my young passions. I am forever grateful. Sports were a key component in my life and gave me a huge sense of purpose. Hearing that the prices of these fields have skyrocketed honestly breaks my heart. Many, many kids will no longer have the same opportunity as I did, simply due to the fact that parents will not be able to afford this drastic change. The whole purpose of these youth sports leagues is to give children an opportunity, purpose, happiness, and friendship, not for the city to make a ton of profit off these organizations. I believe this is going in the totally wrong direction. Please continue to give these kids, parents, and families the privilege to continue in youth sports without running their pockets dry. Remember, this is for the kids. Thank you. That is from Brooke Sabota. The next one is from Emily Sabota. Hello, my name is Emily Sabota. I've lived here in Corona for all 21 years of my life. I grew up alongside my 3 siblings who all played and are still playing in Corona club teams. Sports have always been embedded in my life one way or another. My older sister, Brooke, 22, has played league softball from T-ball all the way to high school. My younger brother, Maxwell, 16, plays baseball and loves it. My youngest brother, Nolan, 12, plays soccer. He is so passionate and so in love with his sport. I myself was never the sports type, so I can't speak about being on a team, but I can speak about the joy I witnessed all my life and now through my siblings. I watched my sister play and experience all the emotions, life lessons, friendships, wins, losses, and so much more. This is something that seriously shaped her into the amazing woman she is today. Maxwell makes many friends and continues to grow into a strong, smart, and funny young man. Baseball is an outlet for him and teaches him the importance of teamwork. He stays active, out of trouble, and pushes himself to do the best he can in school so he has the opportunity to play. Nolan pours his heart into soccer. He makes amazing friends. He comes from school, does his homework, and once all his responsibilities are done, he watches soccer videos on YouTube, learning how to be better every day. Then he goes outside to the backyard or to the park and practices for hours and hours till he gets it right. He rocks it on the soccer field, and the look on his face when he runs around out there is unmatched. This is what sports gives our youth. It is so important to have the opportunity for as many children as possible to experience all the wonderful memories, emotions, activities, friendships, and life lessons that come with these sports. Raising the price puts limits on Corona's future. These are the people that are going to fill our shoes one day. They will grow and learn, and soon enough will be fully fledged people in our society. It is our job to give them every opportunity possible to have a successful future. These sports can and will play a huge part in that. One day, once I'm settled and hope to raise my children here, I have always dreamed of my life and how it would look one day. Sports are a huge part of that dream. And when that day comes, I can afford to put them in sports. I may not be on a team, but I can say with all my heart that I would never change a thing about my childhood. Every game of my sisters I attended, every team party, every barbecue, traveling to different places, playing with the other siblings, climbing trees, making up new games, all of it. I wasn't on the team, but I learned so much from being there at every game and every practice. My parents, my sister, and I all made lifelong friends. The thought of how insanely different my life would be if my sister was not in a sport is weirdly unimaginable. These sports are for everyone, not just the children playing the game. Thank you so much for your time. Emily Sabota.
Okay, make that 27 speakers. Again, very much appreciated. Commissioner Boggs, do you have any questions or comments?
Ms. Finch, I have just a couple questions on the presentation, which I thought was very good, so thank you for that, and thank you for all the comments from the public today. On slide 7, on the financial sustainability strategy, you talked about that it was a three-prong approach, or the 3 pillars. Do we currently know what the tax subsidy ratio is between what the tax subsidy and what the fee structure or the charges are?
Well, we had for the skill-based activity, the cost recovery rate that was identified through the Park and Rec Master Plan study was 48% of cost recovery of total cost. Is that what you're referring to, the question?
So that's recovering the cost. So this was talking about a tax subsidy. So do we know how much is the city actually contributing for that?
So the subsidy would be the flip. It'd be
The inverse.
52% of
Okay.
the, yes.
Okay. And then you had mentioned on slide 12 that this, on the athletic field rates, that it was analyzed, hasn't been analyzed since 2018. When was the last increase?
The rates were set in 2018, and that's the last time they have increased.
Okay, so analyzed and increased meant the same thing here?
Correct.
Okay. I'm sure I will have other questions, but those were just the 2 to clarify the presentation. Thank you.
Great. Commissioner Munoz?
Thank you very much. I really don't have any questions at this point in time, but if you wouldn't bear with me, I have a few comments to make. And I want to thank the audience for being here tonight. It's wonderful to see people in the audience, mainly. But as a youth growing up in the San Fernando Valley, my sports really was in the streets and the fields that we had at our house on Turriune and Sun Valley. So playing baseball, playing basketball in the garage area, playing football on the street, soccer, kickball. We were in the fields we became basically the Sandlot kids of Sun Valley. So secondly, that evolved into school sports, and then on the asphalt basketball courts, flag football and things of that sort. But going back to the first one, growing up in the streets, is that we were able, as 8 to 10-year-old kids, being able to be mentored and to kids who were in high school already. So at 8 to 10 years old, I was looking up to kids who were in high school, 9th grade, 10th grade, and they would share how to play baseball, how to catch a ball, how to swing a bat. And that was wonderful because the youth that I was looked up to these older boys for that, being mentored too. As I grew up into junior high school, we moved from San Fernando to the Orange County area. I was lucky to get into Boy Scouts. So that changed my life altogether. I learned how to become a young man, and now a man to look forward to being a volunteer, much like you in the audience tonight. So that's my history. As I got married, I joined the Volunteers in Probation program in Orange County with the Juvenile Hall District, boys and girls, and up to Theo Lacey for jail, basically. And I learned one thing from that is that I knew that there was a better way to raise your kids. And youth sports and Boy Scouts was part of that program. A lot of these kids were there because they were latchkey kids. They had no adults that were there in the background. And it was sad to see that. And I was like 24 years old, about to raise kids of our own. So it showed me that there got to be a better way to have kids be active. And sports was one of those things. So we hear you. We hear you very much so. And if you can't afford scouts, you can definitely be a ball player of any kind. And then as an adult now, I had an opportunity to hear a documentary about the coach of De La Salle High School. And he's one of the best coaches in the U.S., the biggest, longest winning program. So what he said, though, was he's a coach not because of the sport of football, but to be able to raise boys to young men that would go out in the community and be a better man, to share that experience and raise a good family, be a good husband. And so it wasn't coaching at all, just being a father figure to boys that really didn't have parents at all. So that was my middle part of it all. So those three things here, my youth experience, VIP programming, and the coaches that we hear here in the audience and in high school leagues and junior high school, I commend you all. But that will lead to my eventual option 5 I'll talk about later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of comments, maybe a question or two, but really kind of how we got here, right, to this point. Because we all enthusiastically, the commission that existed at the time, Stacy, myself, and Tom, and the 2 other former commissioners, we all enthusiastically embraced this Parks and Recreation Master Plan that was a long time in the making. But as a very complicated plan, it may not be perfect. And I am one to readily admit when, things are wrong or incomplete. In this case, I think incomplete. It best explains it because there were surprises and late-breaking surprises. And on the slide that's on the screen now, we thought it was 48.56%. It really was 14%. That's a pretty big delta, and kind of an unacceptable one in my mind to move forward with while these details are emerging. And I think it's worth taking the time to truly understand what the realities are and how the real impacts impact the community. If I speak to slide 8, the common good services are accessible to all in a community and provide universal value. It could be debatable about universal value, but I think the fact that we have a collection of leagues here that offer a variety of options where everyone plays, no one is turned away, there's minimum play time per activity. And last week we heard about some programs the city puts on, kind of fill in some gaps. Volleyball, for instance, because there's not a robust everyone plays volleyball league in town. So the city fundamentally understands that there's community good and common good to offering these. And you could take AYSO, and you could take Little League, and you could take Corona softball, and individually say, yeah, that's not my cup of tea. That's a very individualized thing for people who want to play softball and people who want to play soccer and who want to play baseball or volleyball in the community in the city-run program. But if you take them as a whole, right, the fact that the leagues exist, I argue is a community benefit, and not only for the participants, but there are collateral benefits, and a lot of the speakers spoke to those collateral benefits tonight. They activate the parks. That's something we fundamentally want to do with our park system, is activate the parks and keep them busy. They bring the families, the friends, they use the playgrounds, they engage with the parks that we put so much time, effort, and energy into providing. A couple others here. So when we did the rate analysis in 2018, question, was there a phase-in, or was it, that's it?
So I was not working for the department at that time. I did do some research into the process that had occurred, and it appears that it went from a $0 to the rates that were set at that time. There was no phase-in.
Okay. Okay. If we could move into the deliberation and how we're going to recommend to the council, part of the conversation, I'll take a point of privilege in leading off there. You know, I was an AYSO kid. I played Little League. Two of my youngest kids were in AYSO, and my oldest kids went through AYSO, and I was a volunteer ref, and I totally get the gig, right? It's 100% volunteer, and if you don't have the volunteer stepping up to do it, it doesn't happen, or the other volunteers just have to pick up the slack. It's just kind of the way it is, and I picked up a lot of slack. I reffed a lot of games that my kids weren't in, I tell you that. And my daughter was in the Corona softball too, down at Butterfield. So I'm connected to it, and I imagine that my two youngest kids will go through some of those programs too as they grow older. And they're great, you know. And there was so many more benefits other than just learning to kick a ball, as they say. And my feeling is that the parks are at their best when they're actively programmed, and youth sports leagues offer probably one of the most instrumental ways of activating those parks. You want to see an activated city park. When the Chargers are playing over there, it's really activated. And it's great to see. There's tons of people out there. It's wonderful. But, you know, lots and lots of programming does mean wear. And we have to consider that to some extent. Do we have to consider it the extent that it's been implemented at? I don't think so. There is some conflict in the plan, as Ms. Fitch identified, where it could be read that field reservations are at 120% cost recovery, whereas skill-based sports are at 70 to 90% cost recovery. So I see this as an opportunity, right? An opportunity to revisit, make right, refine, look a little harder into what we did, because I do believe that the balance of that Parks and Rec master plan really, it does set a great course for our community and establishing what parks should be in the city of Corona over time. And you're starting to see those benefits as capital improvement projects start making their way through the parks. So I absolutely don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here, right? But I do think it's an opportunity to take another look at a specific part of it, Appendix F specifically, and take another look at it. I am firmly in the option 5 category, which is, I don't know what it looks like, but we need some more time to figure it out, right? So if I was to make a motion, I'd have 6 things in it, and it would be number 1, pause, press the pause button, stop. We don't do anything this spring. Facts are still emerging. We need to hear all the facts. I don't feel still today, after everything we've heard, that we have our arms 100% around it. So I think it's prudent to press pause until we do. And hopefully we get those quickly and we can have some things in place before fall. It deserves the benefit of time. So in my opinion, a pause is best. Number 2, I'd like to separate cost recovery policies from field allocation policies. I think if we're going to call it cost recovery, then it needs to be based on cost recovery, primarily driving it, and we can figure out what percentage within that. But to use it as a stick for field allocation, that can be in that policy, right? That should be a separate policy. I don't want to conflate the two. But I think that we did just adopt a new field allocation policy that does have some sticks in it, and we should see how they go. And if there needs to be additional revisitation of that, then we can do that. But we have a field allocation policy, we should have a cost recovery policy. I think they should be separated in intent. Number 3, create a new category for Everyone Plays Leagues. And specifically Everyone Plays Leagues. I know we talked about, beginner level or maybe nonprofit versus profit, but I think specifically Everyone Plays is a really important factor for that community benefit, because it's accessible to everyone. Anyone who wants to play can, and they will, and they're going to play a minimum part of every single game, which I think is most people can agree is a pretty common sense community value. right? It is a little subjective, but from what I'm hearing, it's pretty well agreed upon. And within that category, I'd like to see it set at a cost recovery. You know, if I say it's more of a community benefit than individualized, at a sub 50% cost recovery for that category. I don't know what that is. That deserves some additional discussion to my earlier point. Number 4, if there is a increase that, you know, council approves, that's going to make an increase from where someone is to where they're going, that all leagues start from where they are, right? We're not going to say, okay, you immediately jump to, you know, those who are paying 4 immediately go to 10 and then start from there. It would be a phased in from where they are, just like was presented with the options, assuming the $4 an hour starting point that everyone phases in. Now, for those who are already at the higher rate, the $10, the good news is they would see a lower annual increase. It would be a more minimal impact year to year. So that's the, you know, the fairness, balance, rationale in my brain anyway. And I would like to see a phased increase over 5 years, not just 4. And those are what I would like to see recommended to council. And I will invite my colleagues to weigh in.
All righty, so I'll go next. Yesterday, I was into the option 4 category. I mentioned that earlier today. But thankfully, the audience tonight really changed my mind. I came here with open heart, open mind, and willing to share in that experience. We need to be a part of the solution as a team. And as a parent, that we need to at least slow down at the very least and stop it for now, and to reanalyze group rates, for example. And one person mentioned tonight that nonprofits were paying from $10 to $20 per hour, and it's unfair to compare to people for profit. And then, so we need to reanalyze that, and maybe it might take 2 years to reanalyze that next joint meeting. Thirdly, we could probably at the very least phase it over the next 4 years, as opposed to 5 years, but 4 years is good. And then, again, reanalyze where we are in 2 years from now. And we'll see a change. And then at that point, make another change. And then I like the idea, too, mentioned tonight, too, about developing an ad hoc committee where we would meet city staff, Parks and Recreation Commission, and people from the audience tonight, and to meet and talk about solutions rather than just jumping into overall cost. And I do go back to my youth experience I mentioned earlier tonight. In the weekend, I had people going to being stuck in the VIP program, and that would hurt me drastically to see our own kids in our own backyard being jailed. I mean, that'd be sad. And then you'll see those kids on the paper tomorrow being wanted for whatever may be wanted, not good stuff. And if we can make a change tonight and a change tomorrow night, then all the better. So again, thank you for that tonight, and I vote for option 5, as mentioned a few minutes ago. Thank you.
Option 5 as chair presented, is that what you're suggesting?
Well, look, I'm happy to make a motion, and you can amend it or go with it. And my motion would be option 5 with some other recommendations attached. Can we do that and pass it all in one motion?
Yes, Chair, we can. So just to clarify, Chair Olson, for your option 5, we have paused the increase, making sure that we're separating cost recovery from the field allocation policy, create a new category for everyone plays leagues, and set that cost recovery target at 50%.
Less than.
Less than 50%, okay? And then if there's an increase, all leagues start from where they are and the rate that they're currently paying, and then phase in that increase over a 5-year period.
That would be my motion.
I'd like to add to that, I'm sorry, Doctor. I'd like to add a joint ad hoc committee be working to the overall solution. I mean, it needs to be, get that rope thrown out there and work together to tie a knot to the sports leagues and our fields and lack of money or money.
Okay, I would be happy to support that.
Let me come back to that. Ms. Finch, just one additional question from you. There was a couple audience members who brought up more of a process control. Are there new controls in place to catch, like this $4 and why it was never changed? Has that been addressed by the city?
It has been addressed, yes. We have created a SOP, or we're in the process of creating it. We've identified what the process is right now of billing. With the new rate increase that was recently approved, all of the rates were updated in the Civic Rec platform. So we're ensuring that whenever there's an adjustment in rates, they're automatically updated in Civic Rec so that those new rates can be caught directly during the billing process. And then we will have a review of the invoices that will occur at a higher management level before those are sent out.
Perfect. And then, as many of us who are residents here, and when there's an increase, for example, in our proposed water rates, how would current leagues be notified that there has been a change in their rate?
So currently, right now, we have regular communication with the leagues through our Facility Parks and Trails Department. That's where the notification occurred. For any future discussions, we'll ensure that we are notifying the leagues in advance of those changes occurring and making them part of the conversation.
Thank you. I think 5 years is probably too long. I think I can be convinced to 5, but I think since the city's already on a 2 to 3 year cycle on it, I think setting it up at 5 years gives the impression that it's going to stay constant for those 5 years, when in reality it probably isn't.
I think that's fair. And I think that for me, the amount of time wholly depends on where we end up at in terms of what that increase is. If it's if it's a 400% increase, then 5 is short. If it's, if it's a 10% increase, 5 is very long. So, I guess that, for me, that would be variable based on where we actually end up at with cost recovery. So, motion-wise, I'm happy to add Mr. Munoz's recommendation for an ad hoc committee with stakeholders to sort out what that is, right? What those numbers are, so that we can all benefit, right? So there's a community benefit, right? I heard a lot of concerns about field conditions, and I think it needs to be a two-way conversation there, obviously, right? It's hard to improve field conditions without financial sustainability, right? It has to be a part of it. And I think anyone who looks at that cost recovery continuum can agree that there is a framework of logic there, right? It's just where does this fall within there, which is, in my opinion, open for discussion, which is what we're doing. So I'm happy to do 4 years if it comes in at a lower number.
That, I think, is still the missing F. We don't know what that number is going to be.
Correct.
I mean, $20, Ms. Finch, was that based upon the recommendation from 110%, the consulting firm?
The cost recovery target bracket of 70 to 90% was based off of the 110% consulting firm recommendation on best practices from what they have seen in other agencies that they've worked for.
Can you provide any, maybe, of the history then? How was $20 settled upon?
So again, when the adjustment was recommended, it was under the idea that the leagues were paying the $10 an hour rate, which we at that time knew to be 14% cost recovery. To start inching us towards our goal of the 70 to 90%, that's where the recommendation was to move it up to 20, which we thought would get us to, a higher recovery bracket. But then the additional information was discovered afterward on what the actual leagues were paying.
Thank you.
The big, aha, if you want to call it that, for me is taking these leagues as a whole in the community, right? It's very clear based on the feedback, based on my own life experience, that these are a part of our park system. These are not outside, folks coming to use up the field. These are a part of why we built the parks. So that's why, I think first pause, second, we got to make a new category for this type of use. And then start the discussion, and I maybe 4 or 5 years, whatever, maybe it's premature, because first we gotta press pause and figure out what the right approach is with, can we at least agree that this, shifts more towards the common good for the community than, definitely an elite tryout, skills-based group that's in the same category. Now, we can say this is at the lower end of the category, this is the upper end of the category, but right now, they're in the same category. And I think it's pretty important to break it out, because they're not different, they're not the same. They're not even closely the same. Anyone can show up and play these sports. And there's been some really compelling testimony to the fact that we are a community of different means, right? We have certain parts of our community that would have no problem paying $400 for AYSO. It's a fun thing to do on a Saturday and, whatever. The other part of our community absolutely would struggle with that. So we have to reconcile that it's not, in my opinion, fair to just look at Rancho Cucamonga or more, kind of more homogeneous communities when we're not. Right, we have to consider the fact that we are a diverse community and embrace the fact that we're a diverse community, and raise all of the community, right? So, for me, it's definitely going to be shifting more towards the common good, and I'm happy to leave the number of years out entirely if that helps move the argument forward, move the motion forward. Because I think step one, pause. Right? That's the main piece of feedback. Number two, create a new category, figure out where it is with the cost recovery percentage and on the continuum. And I think that is going to be the result of additional conversation. I'm not ready to make where that falls on the continuum determination yet tonight, because I feel like I need to know more things.
I agree.
Okay. So, we had pause, separate cost recovery policy from field allocation policies. Where are you guys on that?
I think it's a separate issue.
Okay. Create new category. Okay. Are you comfortable recommending set cost recovery to sub 50% for this category?
I think it depends upon what the category ends up being.
A category at sub 50% cost recovery.
But it might come back at, I think it just depends on how you word it, because it could come back at 0 cost recovery.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
But if you
Yeah, less than 50. Anyway, whatever it is, my recommendation would be that it's arbitrary, right? We could say under 40, we could say under 30, if you're more comfortable with that.
50's fine, but again, I think it just sets an expectation, which I'm not sure is a realistic expectation.
Which is the expectation of what?
Well, now you're starting off with a number. So if it could be 0, but we've already set the expectation that it should be 50,
no.
Why wouldn't it then be 50?
I'm asking it for it to be less than 50.
Right.
So some number less than 50.
And that's fine. I think it's wordsmithing it. I think as a recommendation to council, less than 50 cost recovery is doable.
Okay. And all leagues start from where they are, which is exactly what staff presented, to make up whatever gap exists between where they're at and whatever that new cost recovery number is. And assuming all other things are great, then, phase it in over a number of years.
And also the ad hoc committee.
Also at the ad hoc committee. Got all that?
Yes, we do. And we would need the commission to take a vote, just to make sure that we have consensus.
Absolutely. Okay, so I am going to make a motion that we recommend to the council that we pause, that we not take any fee increase action for the spring, that we pause at least until the fall, or really when we sort it out, right? That we'll be ready to move forward. So, and that we separate cost recovery policies from field allocation policies, that we create a new category on cost recovery continuum for everyone plays specifically. And that's important, in bold and underlined, everyone plays. And we can add other, qualifiers around that, but I think that's the key one. And set the cost recovery to below 50% for this category, wherever it lands on that continuum. All leagues start from where they are and phase in any increase over 4 or 5 years.
And then the ad hoc.
And the ad hoc committee, write that down. That is my motion. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Munoz. We can take a vote.
Commissioner Boggs, your vote, please. Thank you.
I was on the wrong screen. Okay. Recommendation approved 3-0. Thank you again, everybody who offered your feedback tonight. I know it's difficult to, get down here at 6 p.m. It's a Tuesday night, it's a work night, it's a school night and all that. And for everyone who left already, that's totally understandable. Your voice does make a difference. It really, really does. I promise you it does. So thank you, and I do encourage you to come back tomorrow. That's when, formal direction will be given to staff by council based on our recommendation, all the correspondence they've received, and of course, any additional feedback they receive tomorrow night, and I'm sure that most of them were tuned in tonight. So thank you very, very much. And with that, do any of my fellow commissioners have any closing thoughts or comments they'd like to offer tonight?
Again, I want to say thank you for being here tonight. It was a good discussion. Again, we came here with open hearts and open ears and open minds to listen. And I think that our vote shows that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, again, I can't thank the community enough for really the thoughtful perspectives and very reasonable and respectful. And I hope that, our action reflects your input. So with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you for joining us at the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. We'll adjourn this meeting at, what time is it? 8:23. The next meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission is scheduled for Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. Thank you all again for being here tonight.